In this video, we'll be looking at types of sampling. Here we have Kate. She's curious about a lot of things in the world. She's interested in learning about the pets that people own, the education that people have received, the types of jobs people have, and so much more. Because of her curiosity about the world, Kate knows that it is important to collect data in an effective way, so she learns about different ways in which we can collect data. First, Kate learns about a census. In a census, everyone in the population of interest is surveyed. For a moment, Kate gets excited when she learns she can survey the whole population. But after further reflection, she realizes it would be really hard to get responses from everyone in a large population. Additionally, populations often don't stand still. As people move in and out of communities, or as babies are born and others die, populations are constantly changing. Kate also realizes that try as she might, it would be very challenging to get every single person in a large population to respond to her survey. If the population consists of all the people in the world, an effective census would be virtually impossible. In fact, it is hard to conduct a census on one country, and even in a smaller community like a school. Kate realizes that it's probably time to explore other ways to gather data. She looks at the option of using a simple random sample, also known as an SRS for short. In a simple random sample, each member of the population has an equal chance of being selected. She starts by defining the sampling frame, the list of people from which the sample is drawn. So if the population she's interested in is a school, the sampling frame could be all the students registered in the school. Then, she should design a method to select randomly from that frame. She could draw numbers from a bag, design a method using number generation, or use another method of her choice as long as her selections are truly random. While Kate likes the idea of using this method to collect data, what if it's important that she surveys the same number of men and as women? Or if she wants race in her sample to be represented in the same proportions as the population? In those and similar cases, a stratified sample might be a better idea. In stratified sampling, we slice the population into homogeneous groups, then select a random sample from each group. Each homogeneous group is called a stratum. Put together, the groups are called strata. Examples of common strata are gender, race, age group, and income bracket. Another option for collecting data is cluster sampling. Kate can slice the population into heterogeneous groups, then randomly select a group or groups to perform a census on. The big difference between stratified sampling and cluster sampling is that in stratified sampling, our groups are homogeneous. They share a characteristic. But in cluster sampling, our groupings must be heterogeneous. This mix of characteristics in each cluster should be a fair representation of the population. This is a good option for sampling because it is more practical than doing a census of the entire population. Another option for collecting data is systematic sampling. This gives Kate the opportunity to design her own approach for randomly selecting a sample from the population. For example, she could list names alphabetically, then pick every 10th number on the list. To make this truly random, the first number selected should be randomly selected. The sampling methods discussed so far all use the element of randomness to avoid bias. When gathering data, it is important that we do what we can to avoid bias. An example of a sampling method to avoid, when we can, is voluntary sampling. People who choose to take a survey might have certain biases which will throw off our results. Another sampling method to avoid when we can is convenience sampling. For example, it might be convenient to do a phone or internet survey, but by doing this, everyone in our sample would have to have a phone or the internet, making our sample biased. Here's what we've learned in this video. In a census, everyone in the population is surveyed. In a simple random sample, each member of the population has an equal chance of being selected. Stratified sampling requires random sampling on homogeneous groups. Cluster sampling requires a census on heterogeneous groups. Systematic sampling allows us to design a systematic approach to selecting a sample. Bias sampling methods include voluntary sampling and convenience sampling.